Hi brothers and sisters, back for another video. I know, I'm still working on my final one. But we're going to take a look at the gap in the wall and where the opening originated from, because we're actually told it in the allegorical language. And for anybody who's, have been looking into this, you've probably found so much more than me. But we're going to start reading in Ezekiel 13. And we're just going to go through it pretty quick, what we find out here, and just link it back to everything else that we're going to read. And so you're going to get all of your allegorical overview of how it all came into the contamination of the woman's seed and how it's all there for anybody who wants to open their eyes and study what the true covenant of God and who it was supposed to be with and who the men determined to make it with, which was the harlot spirit that would bow to Baal as God. These passages here that I have pulled up all testifies to that as a simple truth. And it says the web of lies that they have weaved, which is allegorical to, in a sense, a spell. And we're going to take a look at some interesting words here that links our minds to that real understanding is there. For anybody who does real study, what we call real study, not pretend study, but real study. We've determined to go in and look at the words and to look at all the notes and tell us just exactly what really was going on and taking place. And so they were weaving this spell together, and the snare that they lay for our feet, this spell, this weave, this web of lies that they have weaved together for our feet to fall into as a snare, they've actually fallen into it, and they can't break their own spell upon themselves, is the understanding that you get, because they've told the lie for so long, for so many thousands of years, and over time have wiped away all knowledge that they had of it themselves because they wanted to keep it a secret so bad. And so over time they actually erase this secret from them own selves, so they don't even know it's a lie. And you get that in some of the shows. So let's begin reading in Ezekiel 13. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel, that prophesy, and say thou unto them that prophesy out of their own hearts, or their own imaginations. Perhaps we'll move to another rendering just to get a little bit better understanding. So their own imaginations of their wicked hearts, of course, leads us to Jeremiah 23. And we see them prophesying in the name of Baal. So it all links us right back to Baal. Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel who are prophesying. Say to those who prophesy out of their own imaginations, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the Lord God says. Woe to the foolish prophets who follow their own spirits and have seen nothing. Your prophets, Israel, are like jackals among the ruins, or foxes is what it says. Now we've looked the word foxes up. Let me see, where is it here? We'll get it pulled up. Okay. So your word for fox here is, let me go up, is Strong's Hebrew 7776. Masculine, fox, or perhaps a jackal. Jackal is important in this because jackal is another word for dragon. Yeah, that's what it says, for dragon. We'll look at that too. But fox here, same as, this is interesting, Sheol, which is so close to Sheol, from the same as Shoal, a jackal, as a burrower. So they were digging somewhere. Now, for anybody who's watched my other videos, you know where they dug. They dug into hell. So what does a jackal or a fox mean? It means burrower. They were digging for something. All right, so if we look up dragon, this is why dragon, the word dragon is important. It's 8568, and it says probably feminine of tan, a female jackal, dragon. So we got an association there with dragon and jackal. So that's important. So back we go to Ezekiel, and we'll keep reading. It says, that have seen nothing. O Israel, thy prophets are like the foxes in the deserts. You did not go up, where? To the gaps. You did not go up to the gaps and neither made up the hedge for the house of Israel so that they could stand in the battle in the day of the Lord. In the day of the Lord. What's the day of the Lord? Right? Well, that's the judgment, isn't it? The day of the Lord was about what? The controversy of Zion. What was the controversy of Zion? You split my covenant. That's what you did. And what is that covenant allegorical to in Galatians 4? 2 women. One that bowed to man, the harlot spirit, Hagar, that would bow to man as if he was God. But your mother, Sarah, which is allegorical to Jerusalem from above, is the mother of us all. And in her is found our true freedom. That's what it's saying. So it says, you have not gone up to the gaps. So where are we getting a gap? We're getting a gap in the wall. The opening in the wall of David. That's right. And we're told of that opening that gets walled up by King Solomon, when he determines that he's going to wall up those gaps in his father David's wall, right? In effect, what we learn he's doing there is shutting out the key of David, which is your righteous daughters of Israel and their covenant that he no longer wanted. And he began to take harlot wives from the surrounding Adamic nations, which all, in effect, when we begin to understand what was going on, they were bound Baal as Lord and Master. They already knew this lie on their tongue. And this all testifies to it. So, prophesy against the prophets of Israel that prophesy, and say thou unto them that prophesy out of their own hearts, hear ye the word of the Lord. All right, I'm back too far. Sorry. You have not gone up into the gaps, neither made up the hedge. So we get the word gaps. A gap is an opening, correct? That's what a gap is. It's an opening. So here we're going to find out that they seal it up. O Israel, you are like foxes. So they have seen vanity and lying divination. This is where we're going to start to understand what was going on when we look some of these words up. But I'm not going to do it just yet. So, the Lord saith, and the Lord hath not sent them. So they have been saying, they see false visions and they speak lying divinations. They claim this is the Lord's declaration when the Lord did not send them. Yet they wait for the fulfillment of their own messages that they made up. So they're waiting for the fulfillment of the prophet's message, which was a lie. Yeah, our power is flickering here because we've got wind. We've got strong winds today. So if I lose power, I'm going to be in the dark, but I may keep recording anyway. So we have the wall, we have the gap, we have the foxes, we have the prophets, the seers, imagining vain things and saying, well, this is all what's going to happen. And then they're saying, these are going to be fulfilled. But they're waiting for the fulfillment of their religious lie that they declared through lying visions and divinations. That's what it says. And it says, didn't you see a false vision and speak a lying divination when you proclaimed, this is the Lord's declaration, even though I hadn't spoken it? So you've written down all these religious lies, and you said, we're waiting for the fulfillment of this message that we prophesied through our own imaginations. That's right. So, didn't you see that they were false? Didn't you remember that you're the one that spoke them and not me? Therefore, this is what the Lord says. I am against you because you have spoken falsely and had lying visions. This is the declaration of the Lord God. My hand will be against the prophet who sees false visions and speaks lying divinations. It will not be present in the fellowship of my people or be recorded in the register of the house of Israel. So we're looking at the registration of the house of Israel. That's what we're looking at. The house of Israel. And they will not enter into the land of Israel. And then you will know that I am the Lord Yahweh. That it's my words that go forth. It's my prophecies that will be fulfilled. It won't be you lying prophets that prophesied out of the imaginations of your own wicked heart. And then you weaved a lie together and you told it to the masses that it was all going to be fulfilled. But since they have led my people astray, saying, what? What do they say? Peace, peace, and there was no peace. Where does that lead to? Jeremiah. You have healed the hurt of the daughter of my people slightly, saying, peace, peace, when there was no peace. You get what the controversy of Zion was about. The day of the Lord is about the controversy of Zion. The controversy of Zion was about the splitting of the daughters into two covenants. One is a harlot spirit that would bow to man as God, and the other that you did not want in covenant, which was her laws that you were to receive. That's right, at her mouth. And all of this testifies to it. My hand will be against the prophets who sees these false visions. They will not be present in my fellowship. Since they have led my people astray, saying peace when there is no peace, for when someone builds up a wall, they plaster it with whitewash. Let's read the King James on this. Because they have seduced my people, my daughters, my sons. It began with the sons. Watch. We'll take you in and show you how this opening led to that. Because they have seduced my people, saying peace, and there was no peace, and one built up a wall, and lo, others daubed it with untempered mortar. That actually takes us to this little passage in Job 31. I ain't got this one pulled up, but we'll do it right now. Job 31:33, I believe it is. Job 31:33, what does it say? If I covered my transgressions as Adam, hiding mine iniquity in my bosom. So here we've got an opening that they didn't go up, so that the children, we read this on our last video in 2 Kings 19, I believe it is, or 1 Kings 19, where it says the children have come to the birth and there is not strength to bring forth, because they were going after the daughters of Israel and their covenant, and they were known as the key of David, and they were daubing it up. They weren't standing in the breach to give them power, to empower them. They were actually daubing it over with whitewashed lies, right? Untempered mortar, a bunch of lies. And Paul even addresses the Pharisees in the New Testament, says, "O ye whitewashed walls." That's what he says. Go look it up in the New Testament if you're able to. It is there. Because they have seduced my people, saying, peace, peace, and there was no peace. So it says, you have healed the hurt of the daughter of my people slightly, saying peace, peace, when there was no peace. And one built up a wall, and lo, others daubed it with untempered mortar. So what does it say in Hosea 6:7? As at Adam, or like Adam, you broke my covenant and you betrayed my trust. Well, who would Adam break his trust with? Well, that was to the Lord, who was identified as her daughters of Israel that she worked through. Her covenant got violated. So, we'll keep reading here. So they daub up the wall. Say unto them which daub it with untempered mortar, that it shall fall, and there shall be an overflowing shower, and ye, O great hailstone, shall fall, and stormy wind shall rend it. Lo, when the walls is fallen, shall it not be said unto you, where is the daubing wherewith you have daubed it? So she says, I'm going to bring your lies down, your wall, and the lies that you daubed it with. I'm going to bring it all down. And then we get her building a new wall in Song of Songs, chapter 8. And it says, if ye be a wall, we have a little sister. And when she be spoken for, it says, if ye be a wall, we will build a palace of silver upon thee. So we are talking about the daughters here, just to get this context straight. So therefore thus saith the Lord God, I will even rend it with a stormy wind in my fury, and there shall be an overflowing shower in mine anger, and great hailstones in my fury to consume it. So will I break down the wall that ye have daubed with untempered mortar, and bring it down to the ground, so that the foundation thereof shall be discovered. What foundation? The harlot spirit that man built up for himself, so she would bow to a religious lie and law system, saying he, or he, as in the sons of Israel, who, what happened to them? They got contaminated. We're going to look at that. That was the whole point, to contaminate the woman seed, the daughters of Israel, to bow like a harlot. So this is to discover the foundation, right? Lo, when the wall is fallen, shall it not be said unto you, where is the daubing wherewith you have daubed it? Overflowing shower. So will I break down the wall that ye have daubed with untempered mortar, bring it down to the ground, so that the foundation thereof shall be discovered. The foundation of this world, the harlot spirit that man built up for himself. He attacked the Lord's covenant. Her covenant is what he attacked. And it shall fall, and ye shall be consumed in the midst thereof, and you shall know that I am God. Thus will I accomplish my wrath upon the wall, and upon them that have daubed it with untempered mortar, and will say unto you, the wall is no more, neither they that daubed it. To wit, the prophets of Israel which prophesy concerning Jerusalem, and which see visions of peace for her, and there is no peace, saith the Lord God. The Lord God hears, daughter Israel's number 136. So we go into the false women prophets in a minute, but we're going to backtrack here. All right. 2, when they see these imaginations of their hearts. Okay. Right here. Didn't you see a false vision and lying divination? So it is this verse, I believe, that we go into. And we're going to hit on a word here. You have seen a vision. Is that the word I'm after? No. Divination? No. Okay. So, because you see, they render it different in different verses. There it is. It's 2374. That's right. So it's 2374, which is found in the passage of Ezekiel 13, verse 9. Okay. So we'll go back to verse 9. My hand will be against the prophet who sees false vision and utter lying divinations. They will not belong to the counsel of my people or be listed in the records of Israel, nor will they enter into the land of Israel. Then they will know that I am the sovereign Lord, and that is her title, sovereign Lord. So we see it being verse 9, and when we go in, it's the word prophets that you want to look up. All right, so let's get this straight. It is the word prophets that you want to be looking up here. No, it's not. And my hand will be against the prophets who envision. That's the word, envision. All right, that's how it's translated when you go in on the parallel, I believe. It should be in most places. So who envision, all right? Now they'll say visions and false divination, and they'll give it different in just about every verse. Here you're going to find, I believe, the correct one. It means a seer, 2374, prophets, pact. That's interesting. You make a pact together with one another. Watch. If we stroll down in the notes here, this is what we're going to read. Necromancer, vision. It takes us to Isaiah 28 too. 15. Isaiah 28 verse 15. You who have made a pact with death. Now watch. Vision. It says compare Isaiah 28 and verse 7 or Isaiah 28 verse 15 with Sheol. We made a vision, had a vision in connection with Sheol, i.e. by necromancer, which makes us secure. So if we go down one more, it says, we have appointed a prophet with Sheol, who is answerable to us, and others are at or have made an agreement with. Prophetic advice of seers being taken at time of making treaties. Do we get what was going on here? These liars who were saying that they were speaking to the Lord and having visions were in a pact, in agreement of what they were going to say they were seeing. And they were all going to say they were seeing the same thing. They were in agreement. And it was to do with their wicked imaginations that God was telling them that God was Baal. He. That's Jeremiah 23. The wicked imaginations of their heart. And you have not seen the sins of my daughters. You have not brought their peace by showing them the sins. That was in Lamentations. Right? We discovered that in Lamentations. What was it? Chapter 2? Yeah. Lamentations chapter 2. We'll go there. So that's right after Jeremiah. Or before it, is it? Which is it? Before it. Lamentations is after Ezekiel, is after Jeremiah. Lamentations 2, what was it, 14? The prophets have seen vain and foolish things for thee, and they have not discovered thine iniquity to turn away thy captivity. He's talking to the daughters of Israel here, the virgin daughter of Israel. For the false burdens and causes of your banishment, they have not. They spoke an imagination out of their wicked hearts, and they agreed to stay in counsel with each other, weaving this web of lies together, which you see the kings in Psalm 83 taking counsel to stop her from being a nation. That's what we see. And what does this say here? I couldn't help this come to my brain. If I still got it up here. What do they open the game? I know this is foolishness, but what do they open the Game of Thrones with? The realm. Do you not know what the realm is? It's 1,000 blades, right? Those archers shooting at the daughters of Israel, the lying tongue of Agon's enemies, her enemies. A story we agree to tell each other over and over until we forget that it's a lie. That's the snare that the weavers of the lie here in Jeremiah 23 and Ezekiel 13 and 14 took counsel together against the daughters that they would begin to prophesy a lie. Now this was after the opening that got created with Baal Peor and Balaam in the wanderings. So here we go. We'll continue on. We're going to skip from Ezekiel 13, I think. Right? Okay, so we'll skip from Ezekiel 13. We finished at verse 16 because I do want to get to the false women prophets and then over into the mages. It says they're mages also with that word necromancy. It's got mage in here somewhere. The mages were in agreement. Right? Where is it? I think it was that word that I found the word mage in. They had agreed to weave together this web of lies, these necromancers. Oh, I thought I hid it somewhere here, but I can't find it now. A beholder in vision also, a compact as looked upon with approval, agreement, seers, stargazers, beholders. They were in pact, they were in agreement with one another of what they were going to prophesy that they had seen in their dreams. But in the whole process of it all, they were lying to the daughters, and they were not discovering what brought them in bondage, and that was in bondage to Baal and a religious lie, that he was God. So Isaiah 28, what does it say in 15? It says, let's start in 14. Wherefore, hear the word of the Lord, ye scornful men that rule this people. Actually, it was the daughters. You mockers who rule this people in Jerusalem. So they were mocking. They thought they were so clever taking out the daughters of Israel. They were mocking them by making her their harlot. Let her eyes look upon Zion, let her be defiled. They thought they were so clever. But they didn't know that it was really a snare that they were going to fall into themselves. And they were not going to be able to escape it because they forgot that it was a lie that they told each other and agreed to hold in pact. So because ye have said, we have made a covenant, a pact with death, and with hell are we at agreement. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come unto us, for we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood have we hid ourselves. You see, they told a bunch of lies. They think they're going to be safe from it all when the overflowing scourge of death does come to them. But they're not. And they forgot that it was a lie that they told. So Jeremiah 23 says all of this, states this. It says, mine heart within me is broken because of the prophets. All my bones shake. I am like a drunken man. But it was the woman that they were putting the admixture of doctrine, wine to her lips, so that they could look upon her nakedness and make her their harlot, bow to his lie upon the harlot's tongue, that Balaam sent in to the men of Israel. So we're going to get there next. So I am like a drunken woman, and like a woman whom wine has overcome, because the Lord and because of the words of, it says, her holiness. I think this may be an alteration of the word. I think it was the men who were coming in with the wine. The Lord was definitely against them doing this, but at the same time she was mad at the daughters for not putting up a better fight against it and was going along with the lie. For the land is full of adulterers, for because of swearing the land mourneth, the pleasant places of the wilderness are dried up. That's her waters being dried up, and their course is evil, and their force is not right. So we see her physically changing in Job 16. We read that verse yesterday. Yeah, of course I don't have the book with me. It's Job 16. She says, my garment binds me about. The collar of my garment binds me about. The force is changed within me. And so she speaks of her garment being changed by the disease. So we're seeing the contamination of the plague coming in as a disease upon this woman, these women, which were known as the daughters of Israel. And she says it in Job 16. Where is it? I think it was Job 16, was it not? She says, my garment binds me about. His archers compass me round about. He cleaveth my reins asunder and does not spare. Yeah, I can't find it. I thought it was in 16. But she says, my strength is gone. I can't find it. They gap upon me. They have gapped upon me with their mouth. They have smitten me upon the cheek reproachfully. That's the daughter of Israel in Micah 5. Gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. They have struck you upon the cheek. We find her actually being took under bondage into captivity in Ezekiel 19. And they gathered themselves against me. They took counsel against her. The kings did. They made this pact together to preach a bunch of these visions and lies, and till the point where they forget that they are lies that they're preaching and teaching. He teareth upon me in his wrath, who hated me. He gnashed upon me with his teeth, and mine enemies sharpeneth. That's the dragon eye. The dragons are said to have sharp eyes. They see what's going on. Sharpeneth his eyes upon me. They have gaped upon me with their mouth. God has delivered me to the ungodly. She was at ease. She trusted him. See, I thought it was 16. And it's not. I can't find it now. So I don't remember. Maybe it was 14. I know this is painful, so I won't go there. But we discussed it on the last video. How she says, my disease. So when she says that word disease, the disease, my force is changed within me. My disease is like a garment that bindeth me about, the collar bindeth me about. So she's talking about the plague that came in upon her and marred her path. The archers shot at her. They hated her, right? And this is all akin to the plague that came in upon the woman's seed and the wanderings. When what? Okay. So we will go to Numbers. Numbers 31. What does it say? Numbers 31, verse 16. Look, these women caused the sons of Israel through the counsel of who? Balaam, to turn unfaithfully against the Lord of Peor. Against the Lord at Peor. So that the plague struck the congregation of the Lord. This is where the division comes in. You divided my pleasant land. You divided my covenant. The day of the Lord is about the controversy of Zion. You divided my daughters into a harlot spirit. We see them in allegory, this covenant in allegory in Galatians 4 to two women. One that bows to men, to the religious lies that came from Mount Sinai, that she then allowed to go forth because the men were going against her covenant. If I be like Adam and hide transgression in my bosom. We got the gap being opening up here. Because what does Peor mean? Peor means opening. That's what Peor means. So when Balaam tells Balak to go get the women of the surrounding Adamic nations who had already been taught this lie, they've been abused, is some of the names meaning of the women. They had been heavily abused and went through it. And they were being starved out by the laws that the men were writing against them. The archers were shooting at them. Baal, husband, Lord and God, to the point they even forgot it was a lie themselves. They can't escape it. They even wrote their own history about, backtracked those foxes as if they had never been there to write this lie in. So that woman would bow to him. We're discovering the false foundation. This word here means, Peor means opening. Baal Peor. Peor was said to be Balaam's father. This is where we're getting the opening taking place, and that none went into the gap and stood against, so that she could continue to bring the children forth. The children have come to the birth, and there is not strength to bring forth. Where are you to stand in the gap? To strengthen the daughters so that the children might be birthed. Where are you, cowards? Where are you? Where does it say it? Again, let's go back. You broke down the wall is what you did. Actually, you daubed it up. She's going to break it down. So she says, where's the word gap? Yeah. I can't find it now. But says, you did not go up to stand in the gap. You didn't do it. Instead, you know what you did? Yeah, you did not go up to the gaps or restore the wall around the house of Israel so that it might stand in battle on the day of the Lord. You continued on with your religious lie, and the snare you laid for my daughters to fall into, you have now fallen into it yourselves. You have forgotten the lie that you told. Your covenant was to be with the righteous daughters. It was not to be with these harlots that Balaam and Balak sent in with their lie upon their tongue to contaminate the woman's seed, the plague. The plague struck the congregation of the Lord. What is the day of the Lord about? It is about the controversy of Zion. What is the controversy concerning? It is concerning the dividing of the pleasant land. What was the pleasant land? The daughters of Israel into two covenants. One that would bow to man with a religious lie of Baal as God, Lord and God. And we see these daughters who wake up at the end. The Lord that awakens as if from strong wine and drink. Angered by the idol she sees standing, which is Baal, her husband, as Lord and God. And she's mad. But mother allowed the righteous daughters to continue to sleep through this whole lie. And at the end they would awaken with the truth upon their tongue, holding no guile of the harlot spirit, of Babylon, of Baal. Her husband who hated her from the beginning. The archers that shot at these daughters as they go over the wall. They daubed it up. They were supposed to stand in the gap, these sons were, but they didn't do it. They took harlots. Look, these women caused the sons of Israel through the counsel of Balaam. Balaam means husband as Lord and Master. It's also another name, Beelzebub, for Satan, who is Lord of the demons. And we know Baal goes right back to Adam, Satan the accuser, who accused her from the beginning and took her house away from her. Thus saith the Lord God, woe unto the foolish prophets that follows their own imaginations, their own spirits, and have seen nothing. Jeremiah 23, they began to prophesy through he, the he pronoun, through Baal as Lord and God. And then they forgot it was a lie, a complete and utter lie. And the daughters, they did not discover your sin. What brought you in bondage and captivity? So if you're listening to the men on the pulpit, you're listening to the ones who refuse to stand in the gap and make up the hedge. It says, the children have come to the birth, and there is not strength to deliver. Men do not deliver children. Women deliver them. And more precisely, it was the daughters of Israel that the men of Israel were to be in covenant with. And then we see, look, these women caused the sons of Israel through the counsel of Balaam. Those were the ones from the surrounding Adamic nations sent in to contaminate and bring the plague and the disease and the sickness. She says, my garment binds me about. It weakens me. He no longer listens to me. He mars my path before me. I no longer am listening to the true Holy One of Israel. I turned from her and I turned to him as if he was Lord and God. Shame on you. Wow, shame on you. And it's all there. Anybody watching my videos who's followed from the beginning, you see the path has gotten straighter and straighter as we go. Yes, we've made mistakes, but we're on the pathway. I don't care what anybody says. And if I'm alone here in the wilderness, crying out and making straight the path and the highway for the true living God, then I'll be the only one doing it. It's fine. That's fine. I've done it. And I've been doing it for a long time, and nobody wants to go in and do the hard study. Well, I won't say nobody. I've got my consistent followers who are trying to follow this and pick it up, and I believe you are. I truly believe you are. So let's go to the women here in Ezekiel 13. And it says some nasty things about these women. So we know there's dark magic being practiced here, which comes back into the weaving of the spell. That's right. So I'm going to turn here right quick to have this up before we start reading. So we know that they weaved a web of lies. That means the men of the globe took counsel to stop these daughters from coming into existence as a nation that could actually deliver her children. But over time, they forgot the lie themselves, and the snare they lay for us to fall into, they actually fall into it themselves. They won't get their lazy butts off the pulpits to actually get in the Word and study what I'm saying, to see if it's the truth. They're too busy promoting themselves. Baal, he, as the deliverer of children. He can't deliver nothing, not a thing. The children have come to the birth, and there is not strength to bring forth. Why? Because they would not stand in the gap in the day of the battle. They wouldn't stand there. You know what they did? They took Balaam's side by marrying the harlots, and they did. God made a law telling the men of Israel, you are not to take wives from the surrounding Adamic nation. And less than 10 chapters later, the law is altered that, well, you can take a woman, and if you humble her, that means rape her. If you rape her and make her do something against her will, then you decide you don't want her to wife. This is the good part, the godly part of him. You can't sell her. You are to free her and let her go. Oh, what good guys they are, these men of Israel. They've been so contaminated by this point. There was no women to uphold Mother God's covenant, the Holy One's covenant. And so she has something to say to these women here in Ezekiel 13. She's very mad at her daughters. Even though we see part of the reason why they're actually doing it. But in Isaiah 59, we're told, none calleth for justice, nor any pleadeth for the truth. They're all liars. They're all liars. You are condemned under the lie. You refuse to look for the truth, and it is there. They trust in vanity, they speak lies, and they conceive mischief. The men do, and they bring forth iniquity. That's why you see every man standing around with his hands on his hips and every face turned pale. The judgment for all the lies that got told, for making woman her harlot, for making woman his harlot, so that she would bow to him and yoke her under religious lies and law, a law system that did not free us, forced her into the bondage of their laws, which then makes her a harlot in many ways, where she's barely hanging on, she's barely existing, because, well, she's not allowed to own property, she's not really a person in her own right, and she was made for him. These are the lies that get spilled off of their tongue. So what's 5? They hatch cockatrice eggs and weave the spider's web. He that eateth of their eggs, she that eateth of their eggs dieth. and that which is crushed breaketh out into a viper. So what eventually happens is one comes out of their own vine, in a sense, and tears their lives down, is the idea. So they become Baal's children, his children, because then she becomes known as Balaam, Baal herself, a harlot, which is willing to be ruled over by Baal and teaches religious lies. She's called the married wife in Isaiah 54:1. If you go look the words up, yet more are the children of the desolate than of she who has a husband. It says, a snare he laid for me to fall into, he actually falls into it himself. And he doesn't escape. He won't escape. And it says, their web shall not become a garment. It won't become a body. And that's why she says what she says in that verse, my garment binds me about my neck. The force of my disease, the plague that come upon her by these women who had been counseled by Balaam, the big liar, and Peor, his father, Baal Peor. But Peor was said to be his father, means an opening, where the opening began. And these harlots, the key of Solomon, actually began there, contaminating the sons of Israel. And then we see Solomon daubing up the gates and David, his father's wall. And it was a full end of these daughters of Israel in their rightful place as the birthright holders, the deliverer of the children through the law of Mother God, which were found in Deuteronomy 4, her 10 commandments. And then they would make just, they would give out just rulings if any cases come up on an individual type basis. They didn't rule like the kings do. That's not how rulership through the Holy One of Israel worked. It was very different, but she says, now you're making me mad because you refuse to listen to reason. You refuse to listen to wisdom. You refuse to listen to the trumpet sounding. You refuse all of it. And so judgment is going to come upon you. It says, your webs shall not become a garment, a body. Your web of lies can't hold together. It will not give you eternal life. Neither shall they cover themselves with their works. Their works are works of iniquity, and the act of violence is in their hands. Their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity, wasting, and destruction are in their paths. So before we can birth our children out through, we have to divide the water, the Red Sea, which is allegorical to actually two covenants that got mixed in this wine that she has to drink. And she does drink it. She agrees to drink it down. I believe in Psalm 116. She does bear the double upon her head. Tell Israel her warfare is ended. Right? We find that in Isaiah 40. She is the Azazel goat cast out to bear the sins of what Israel was doing at the time. And so we get this understanding that Zion becomes the outcast covenant that no man seeks a covenant with. And so we have all of that. And will pollute me among my people. Okay, so let's continue reading Ezekiel 13 about the false women prophets. Because I heard this one. Women are not supposed to prophesy. No, that's not what this was saying. This is saying that the women here began to prophesy what the men wanted them to, which is false prophecy. Man is not your God. He did not die. And bloodshed was never a requirement of the Holy One. Never. And she says so. She says so over and over again. Likewise, thou son of man, set thy face against the daughters of thy people, which prophesy out of their own heart. No, they had become contaminated by the counsel of Balaam. So I tend to think Balaam was messing around with the word. Out of their own heart, and prophesy thou against them, and say, thus saith the Lord God, woe to the women that sew pillows to all the armholes, and make kerchiefs upon the heads of every statue to hunt souls. So we're looking at some kind of black magic here. I don't know, witchcraft. It is connected with Sheol, capturing souls to make them fly, to make them do what they wanted them to do. That comes from Balaam and Balak. They were digging for another key. That was the key of Solomon that they were digging for, which was Sheol, which led them into Sheol, the pit also that they will not escape from. But then we get a pit that the daughters of Israel at the end, that she takes for herself to rule through, know ye not the pit from which you are dug from. So the original pit was supposed to be, the original foundation was supposed to be the daughters of Israel, the righteous daughters of Israel, who hearkened to mother's law from above. Jerusalem is the mother of us all, not the father. And it was her 10 commandments that we were supposed to listen to. And then when we began to preach and prophesy through Baal and his lies, which over time, then nobody sees the harlot. Isaiah 47, she says, I will never be widowless, I will never be childless. I'm hid in his heart. No one sees me. That's how she's hid in his heart. Nobody sees her. She's hid there. And the snare that they laid for us to fall into, they fall into it themselves. They truly believe that man is God. They do so teach it. They teach Jesus as God. He was a man who walked on earth. And then they said, but he was God, the creator of all things. No, he was not. The Holy One of Israel that you were to uphold was the daughter of Israel, and the sons are seen turning on her in anger. And the Shulamite says, but my own vineyard have I not kept. My mother's sons were angry with me. They looked upon me, she says. That's right. Let her eyes look upon Zion, but they know not the thoughts of the Lord. Neither they understand her counsel, and they wouldn't. That requires study to understand mother's counsel. She says, who has hearkened to me and wrote my words in a little book? She says that in Jeremiah 23. She says, who's bothered to do that? That's a little book sealed up at the end of days with the truth. And, but you won't stand in the gap. No. But she says, you who practice witchcraft. And they're catching souls. To hunt souls. Will ye hunt the souls of my people? And will ye save the souls alive that come unto you? Are you going to preserve them? She's saying this to the daughters. So there's a judgment here already in view. And they were judging wrongfully because they were taking Balaam's part by doing what he wanted, and we're told why they were doing it. And will ye pollute me among my people for handfuls of barley and for pieces of bread? They were starving them out through the man-made law and lie system, which was no excuse for what they were doing. And mother says, I'm going to judge you, you daughters, who practice this witchcraft to build up the son Balaam and Balak, your husband, as if he was Lord and God, and you turned on me. And I know why you did it. You did it because he wrote laws saying that you were nothing and you had no rights to own anything, and they were shutting you down with their religious lies and laws. But we are told they were doing it for handfuls of barley and for pieces of bread, so they could eat. They were starving them out. To slay the souls that should not die, and to save the souls alive that should not live, by your lying to my people that hear your lies. So, you see, they did not discover their own sin, which was to bow to Balaam as if he was God. So it appears that he did not have this power. He did not have this power. They had to go to the daughters to get them to do this for them, because it was the daughters that possessed the power to condemn or live. Let live or let die. That's what they were doing here. And they were making false judgments. And they were doing it for nothing more than handfuls of barley and for pieces of bread. They were hungry. That's why they were doing it. Because the laws had been written by that time, and the men were using great violence. That's the law of blood. That's the covenant of blood. The only way the children are going to be birthed is if we can part that Red Sea, the doctrine, the lie, and separate the two covenants and understand what we were to do on this earth. You have not discovered what brought you under bondage. You have it in captivity. And if women ain't yoked in this system, then I don't know where you're looking. You ain't got your eyeballs open, that's for darn sure. And bowing to a man as if he's your Lord and God is not going to save you. It has not led to our salvation. It has led to our continued yoking under a religious lie and law. And most husbands believe that every woman and every wife ought to bow to him. Because, well, look, it says so in the Bible. Written by Baal and supported by the harlot foundation. When they shot at them daughters to pass over the wall of David and daubed it up with a whitewash full of lies. That's right. That's what it says. You want to go study? Go study. If not, then keep bowing to a lie, and you will be cut away in the great judgment. And will ye pollute me among my people for handfuls of barley and pieces of bread? Are you going to stand for me? Wherefore thus saith the Lord God, behold, I am against your pillows wherewith ye there hunt the souls to make them fly. And we come back to necromancing again over and over. I do not know anything about dark magic. I am reluctant to even look into it. I don't like it. It makes me feel icky. And yet it is referenced over and over and over again that they were practicing a dark magic to do with souls. They were condemning them in Sheol by these kerchiefs that they were sewing to the sleeve. The sleeve is allegorical to your shoulder because in here is where your soul would go. And so we have the idea of a chamber. And even the souls that ye hunt to make them fly. You hunt them to make them fly for you. To do your bidding is what it looks like. So your kerchiefs also will I tear, and I will deliver my people out of your hand. So she's saying, I'm going to bring you up from Sheol. That's what she's saying. I'm going to tear your spell down. I'm going to tear your spell book down. I'm going to tear your religious lies and your visions and that web that you men all made together in covenant with one another. That you made together. They can't make a garment to hold together. The web shall not become a garment, neither shall they cover themselves with their works. The kings took counsel and decree to stop her from being a nation, the daughters of Israel from coming into existence. That's found in Isaiah 83 and Psalm 2. She says, oh, you better kiss my daughters. Oh, you better kiss my daughter. That's right. Kiss her. Doesn't say beat her around. Doesn't say even to look upon her and let her be defiled. It says, you better give due respect to the one that has deserved it. That he should not return from his wicked ways by promising him life. So there's the covenant. Oh, we're getting a covenant with death right there that you find in Isaiah 28. It says, because with lies ye have made the heart of the righteous sad, whom I have not made sad. And you have strengthened the hands of the wicked, that he should not return from his wicked way, by promising him life. Again, this takes us to Jeremiah 23, Ezekiel, this chapter, Ezekiel 13, where it says that their message that their lying prophets have spewed is going to come true. And the daughters here were performing all of this for food. That's what it says, to survive. So, because with lies you have made the heart of the righteous, whom I have not made sad, by promising him life. You see? You'll live through that false image, Balaam. He shed his blood to wash you clean. Yeah. He's the only begotten son of a father. No mother required. Yeah. You turned on your own covenant. Therefore ye shall see no more vanity, nor divine divinations, for I will deliver my people out of your hand, and you shall know that I am the Lord. She says that. The Holy One says that. That's right. And she prophesies it through her daughters. That's who she prophesies it through. Her daughters that she rebirths out of the dust of the earth at the end. And it is all there for anybody who wants to understand the truth. But if you want to fall into Baal's snare, well, go right along. Go for it. Then came certain of the elders of Israel unto me. This is Ezekiel 14. And sat before me, and the word of the Lord came unto me, Son of man, these men have set up their idols in their hearts, and they have put the stumbling blocks of their own iniquity before their face. And she says, should I be consulted by them at all? Now, I got looking for this because I can't remember if it was in one of the books of Septuagint or if it was in the Holy Bible. And it seems like it was in the Holy Bible, or the Bible, where Balaam was not only praying to a false god, but he was then calling on the name of the true living God. So this seems to line up with that. And we also get the practice of Balaam, what he was doing. And I know it was in the Apocrypha, I just ain't found it yet. Where he would take clay and he would mold it into, it seems like he was molding it into chariots and horsemen. And was playing out a siege in it. We know Ezekiel does the same thing. So I have a question there. I'm wondering about that. But I know in the Apocrypha it states all of the black arts that Balaam dealt with. And here she says, should I be consulted by them at all? Should you be allowed to call on to me and take my covenant in your mouth after you've set up a stumbling block of iniquity before their face? Therefore speak to them and tell them, this is what the Lord God, this is daughter Israel's number 136, says. When anyone from the house of Israel sets up an idol in his heart and puts a sinful stumbling block before his face, then comes to the prophet, I, Yahweh, will answer him appropriately, and I will answer him according to his many idols. So that I may take hold of the house of Israel by their hearts. They are all estranged from me because of their idols, their idol. So it says the Lord will awaken. The Lord in the Old Testament, in those passages that we've looked at, is daughter Zion's number 136, will awaken as a warrior from drink, from wine, and she will be angered by the idol that she sees standing. The idol she sees, of course, is in Daniel 2, described in Daniel 2. Nebuchadnezzar sees this image of male God, king, standing, and every kingdom has built on man as God and Lord and Master, and you wonder why you're yoked under religious law and law. You wonder about that, do you? I don't. And she says, I never require blood of you, and yet that's all you ever offer to me. You don't offer up the keeping of my 10 commandments. You don't offer up a peaceful existence. All you ever offer up is blood, and that's all I see on your hands is blood. You didn't bother go in to part the Red Sea and to understand that you are the ones that must birth the children out. And none of the men stood for you or in the gap. You are both guilty. Because then my daughters, who the law was written against to make them poor and impoverished of the flock, began to take handfuls of barley to do just what you wanted them to do with their power, which was to take the souls and promise you that you were going to live forever, and the rest were going to serve you. That seems to be the way it looks. But if the prophet is deceived and speaks a message, it was I, Yahweh, who deceived that prophet, I'll stretch out my hand against him and destroy him from among my people. They will bear their punishment. The punishment of the one who inquires will be the same as that of the prophet, in order that the house of Israel may no longer stray from following me and no longer defile themselves with all their transgressions. They defiled themselves with the idol of Baal. Yes, they did. Then they will be my people, and I will be their God. This is the declaration of the Lord God. So in one part, and I thought it was the following chapter, I apologize, it shows the men going in and what they were practicing inside the temple. It first shows the women, and then, let me see if I can find it. So verse... branch, that was it. They put the branch to their lips. Okay, so let's see what we come up with. Do you see this? This is in Ezekiel 8:17. We were shown what the men were doing. In the outer court, we were seeing the women bowing and worshiping another god. What was it? I did know what it was. I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to help anybody who's looking into the word Tammuz. I believe they were worshiping Tammuz, which is, I believe, a month now, ain't it? Yeah, they were the abominations. It says, then said she unto me, Son of man, dig now in the wall. And when I had digged in the wall, behold, a door. And she said unto me, Go in and behold the wicked abominations that they do there. So I went in and saw, and behold, every form of creeping things and abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel, portrayed upon the wall round about. And there stood before them 70 men of the ancients of the house of Israel, and in the midst of them stood Jaazaniah, the son of Shaphan, with every man his censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. So they were doing this behind hidden walls, right? And this is all akin to practicing witchcraft, dark magics. They were hiding and doing it. And I suspect somewhere on this world they're still doing it. And they don't even know anymore why they're doing it. They just truly believe that it's the right thing to do. Then she said to me, Son of man, do you see what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the darkness, each at the shrine of his idol? For they are saying, the Lord does not see us. The Lord has abandoned the land. So she was saying the same thing. Daughter Babylon, in Isaiah 47, no one sees me. I will never be widowless. I will never be childless. Again, she said to me, you will see even more detestable things which they are committing. So she brought me to the entrance of the north gate. So again, she grabbed Ezekiel's head and she points him. Now, I did this in a video already, 2 or 3 down from this, on 8th day dawning. And she takes his head and she points him and she says, this will be why the glory leaves Israel. Because of the idol that is standing, that they are bowing down and worshiping, I will be leaving Jerusalem. So she brought me to the entrance of the north gate, and she points him to the north of the Lord's house, and I saw women sitting there weeping for Tammuz. Now, out in the wanderings, the congregation of the Lord sat at the gates and was weeping for what was going on when their seed was becoming contaminating. They were weeping. Here, now they're weeping for the lie. So you see, the contamination had took full course and full effect. And she said to me, do you see this, son of man? You will see even more detestable things than these. So she brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and there were about 25 men at the entrance of the Lord's temple, between the portico and the altar, with their backs to the Lord's temple and their faces turned towards the east. Turned to the east. They were bowing to the east in worship of the sun. That's the false light that was shining upon us. They were worshiping. The Shulamite says, look not upon me because I am black, because the sun has shined upon me. The false sun has shined upon me. My mother's sons were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyard, but my own I have not kept. So they were worshiping the sun, the false sun. This is the building of Baal. This is the building of the false image of Jesus. Joshua was the one that upheld his covenant with the true daughter of Israel by promising mother that he would keep her courts as the way they were to be kept. Then she says unto me, hast thou seen this, O son of man? It is a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here. For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger. And lo, they put the branch to their nose. So there's something of interest, the branch to their nose. Yeah. That has to do with maybe smoking up something. I don't know. The way that they were prophesying through their lies. Therefore will I also deal in fury, mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. And though they cry in mine ears with a loud voice, yet will I not hear them. So she says to all the Baal worshippers, the harlots, and the men bowing to men as God, bridegroom, Lord, and Master. Oh, this cute little picture of Jesus taking a little boy, his bride. Yep, part of the bride. With him home. Oh, how sweet. A man with a man. Right. So she says, depart from me. I never knew you. She's not going to know you. You can prophesy through Baal. You can prophesy through Jesus. You can prophesy through blood. It'll never wash you clean and put you in heaven. Never. And this is what these studies tells us over and over and over. But the men have told the lie over and over so much, they have forgotten themselves what a lie it is. And she says, what, should I hear you? After you've set idols up in your heart, you expect me to listen to you. I'm not going to hear you. I'm not going to listen to you. What does she say? Depart from me, all ye workers of iniquity, who built a lie up on a foundation of a harlot spirit. When you decided that you are going to turn away from the covenant of my daughters that I gave you in covenant, and you split the pleasant land. That is what the day of the Lord is about, the controversy of Zion. And we have never had this event at any other point in our history ever told to us. We've never had it ever told to us in the correct context, ever. Because the men of Baal believe the lie that they have spewed for so many thousands of years that they don't see the truth. They can't see it anymore. The web of lies that they agreed to hold together was the snare that they laid for us daughters of Israel to fall into, to prevent us from being a nation. And they fell into the lie and the snare themselves. And it says, and now they will not escape. They can't. So if you're one of these daughters, even a son, seeing this truth, you're one of the few that Mother has chosen out to hear her truth and hear the little book. You're one of the very few. Many are called, few are chosen. You better hearken. If she's calling to you, you better listen. And you better go in and you better start doing hard study, and you better start real fast because we're close. So there we go. It's a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. I thank you for watching. We didn't lose power. The wind is still blowing here. It's blowing a gale. So anyway, thanks for watching. I pray the Lord blesses you with an abundance of truth. Thanks for putting up with my videos. And soon I will be done. Once I get that covenant study done, I suspect I'll hit a week where I'll dig right into it. And once I do it, it'll be done. But when that happens, I don't know exactly. I've been looking kind of on and off at it. And the Spirit is forming. I allow the Spirit to form the thoughts within me. And sometimes it takes time and sometimes it don't. So again, I pray the Lord blesses you with an abundance of truth. I thank you all for watching, sharing my videos, sharing what I write under them. And I hope you all have a really blessed day. Thanks.